Raybon,
Yo,
the Bears. Simon and I have been talking about the Bears. I bet the Bears at 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. The day after the Super Bowl, you've decided to join the bandwagon. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the podcast.
thank you, thank you. And yeah, I love the Bears this year. I mean, you look at this team and you got Justin Fields. I don't think there's any quarterback in the division that's going to be significantly better than him. Obviously, you have Cousins, Goff when he's at home, but this team not only improved their roster drastically in free agency. I mean, every player they signed was, near the top of, essentially in their prime that they signed. Nate Davis was the top 20 guard. You had DJ Moore, Deontay Foreman, DeMarcus Walker, Billings, Tremaine Edmunds, TJ Edwards. I mean, these guys were all playing very well last year. So if they can carry that over, that's just going to be a massive talent infusion. And then you still got 10 draft picks, 4 in the top 64. You got the most cap space in the league. I really like this Chicago Bear team, especially because you look at Green Bay, they're not going to be the same. Minnesota was a bottom 6 team in terms of overall DVOA. They won a lot of one-score games. That usually regresses from one year to the next. And then you got Detroit, and I think Detroit will be good as well. But Detroit is already priced up. Everyone's expected them to win the division already. So give me some Chicago. All of the futures, but I like their division odds at 3-1. I really think they are in play this year. I think they're set up for now and they're set up for the future.
Sweet home, Chicago. My kind of town. Chicago is. Simon, I'm just giving you a chance to dip, brother. That's all it is. So tell me you're thinking, because I have a very specific question for you and for Matt Mitchell, Buffalo Bills superfan Matt Mitchell, about Edmunds, who Raybon just mentioned, who the Bears signed from the Buffalo Bills. But give me your take.
Yeah, I'm all in on them. When the season ended, I knew the Bears were going to be a team that the line was going to run on, just because the pros were going to be all over it. Like the public, they're stupid. They'll never kind of understand what we're looking at here. It's the same thing as the Jags last year. Did I really think the Jaguars were going to win the Super Bowl when they were at 150-1? No, but me and Chad talked about it's all about taking a position of a team that we thought they had a good chance at winning the division, which means they're going to be a 4 seed or better, and they'll be at home in the playoffs, which is a great position to hedge on. So it's the same thing with the Bears here. It's not that it's all fallen into place, Chad, but it doesn't get much better than it's gone this offseason. You got the MVP, the Hall of Famer Rodgers leaving your division, getting replaced by an unproven kid in Jordan Love. You have the Vikings won the division. Now they're going to have to play a first place schedule. I mean, they're losing guys left and right as well, the Vikings. So this Bears team, everything they've done this offseason has been a positive. They're one of the few teams that, most teams are going to have a couple of negatives. They're going to lose a couple of guys. You guys don't really have anything to lose, right? You kind of had been bare bones. You had stripped everything down, but you had the key piece. And the key piece was a rookie that's talented on the rookie pay scale at your quarterback position. Now, do we know how good of a thrower Justin Fields is? No, we don't. We know he's incredible at one aspect of offense, which is running. So right there, that was a huge advantage for us. And the fact that they've now gone out and added a guy like DJ Moore, Chad, I don't know how Bear fans are taking it, but as someone that loves watching DJ Moore's tape, he could easily be a top 5 wide receiver in football. And he's young as hell. So that's what I mean. You guys have done so much. I think Chris nailed on the head naming all the guys you've added this offseason, the defensive side as well as the offensive line. It's just all good, Chad. And you still have money to spend. That's the craziest part. You still have a couple more moves to make even before this draft even happens. So we've seen, like Chad talked about, we got them at 100-1. We got them at 80-1. We got them at 70-1. They're down in most books now at 40-1, 35-1 to win the Super Bowl. And I could still see it keep dropping if they keep adding good pieces here. So, hey, I'm trying to keep Chad in line here, but holy shit, the Bears are just killing it right now.
You don't know how Bears fans feel. We're fucking losing it, Simon. Like I am trying so hard not to increase expectations because I do want to remember Justin Fields is only in the second year of this offense. And the truth is, they didn't even start implementing the kind of offense they're playing in the latter half of the year until after that. I think it was week 6 or 7 against Washington. And Fields was banged up at the end of the year. So he's barely played in the offense that they're going to be playing in when the year begins. But I will contend that Josh Allen was not Josh Allen until he got Stephon Diggs. And so to me, Josh Allen is the analog for Justin Fields. They say Justin Fields is inaccurate, but who's he throwing to? And so you give him a top flight receiver like DJ Moore, and I think all of a sudden you're changing his trajectory and increasing his ability to be accurate because you're getting a guy who can catch the ball. His catch radius is greater. He's going to get to more balls that otherwise would not have been caught. So the downside, if I may, Raybon, you mentioned Tremaine Edmunds. All week, I've been getting that from Simon and from Matt Mitchell. This Tremaine Edmunds, can you believe he's only 24 and he's been in the league for 10 years already? Blah, 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 blah. Do you think he's a good player?
Yes, he's a good player. He's a linebacker, and linebackers are a little tougher to judge sometimes. But I think he really took a step forward last year. Now, I thought last year was his best year. I didn't think he really had a great year until last year. But I mean, I think his pass coverage really improved last year. I think he can do it all now. And if you look at, and obviously this is not the end all be all, but, something like PFF grades, he was a top 5 linebacker last year, right there. Him and TJ Edwards are both top 10 guys in their grades. And Tremaine Edmunds had never had a grade. I don't even think he was average before last year. So a little bit of a one-hit wonder, but, the talent is there. The tools are there. So you always kind of expected him to come into his own. But that's kind of the case across the board for everyone the Bears signed. You look at how they graded out top of their position. You look at how they were playing on tape last year, top of their position. And let me just say, why stop at Josh Allen? Why don't we compare Justin Fields to somebody who actually made it to a Super Bowl? Jalen Hurts wasn't Jalen Hurts till they got AJ Brown. So,
whoa! Now Raybon's just throwing shade at Matt Mitchell and the Buffalo Bills. Look, I will contend that the Buffalo Bills window, it's closed. Like, they are third in that conference behind the Chiefs and the Bengals right now. I think the Dolphins are nipping at their heels. I would be very worried if I were a Buffalo Bills fan right now. Matt Mitchell, all I'm seeing right now on the Zoom as we record this podcast is Matt Mitchell's smiling picture, a photo. And I'm very curious to know what his face looks like for real, but he won't come on the video. Simon, you laughed when I said that about the Buffalo Bills, but I'm down on this team right now and I'm high on Tremaine Edmunds. But why are you and Matt Mitchell giving me such a hard time about the Tremaine Edmunds signing?
Well, I'll just bust your balls because it's just so much money to give to the kid. I mean, I agree with Chris. I think last year was a great year for him, but they're paying him if he's going to be an all-pro. So now he needs to be an all-pro, Chad, and that's high expectations for the kid. But I'm completely out with you on the Bills. I think the Bills, they're still in the window to me. They still got all the key pieces there. Josh Allen was hurt. That's why people are taking a lot of shots at Josh Allen from last year. You can go back and watch the film. He changed his throwing style just because he was laboring on that elbow. So the Bills, if this is how a lot of people feel like Chad does, this is the dream if you're a Bills fan. Last year, I shit on them all season, not because I wanted to, just because in no world should they have been the favorites to win a Super Bowl. They're an unproven team that the public just fell in love with because they felt like they were unlucky. This is even better. You want the public to be out on them. So as someone that wants to bet the Bills, I hope the public feels like that Chad does. And maybe they start 0-2 and I can get them at 14-1 or 15-1 to win the Super Bowl in that tough AFC. So to me, the Bills will be a buy low if people feel this way, because I'm with Chad. The people like the new toys, and the Jets, when they get Rodgers, they're going to be the all hype team. I mean, we're seeing that 14-1 now. The Jets are 14-1. So that's just one of those things where the public is really stupid. They kind of like the new toy, and the Jets in that division, they're going to be the new toy. And I don't want to shit on the Bills too hard, but Chad's not too far off. Their window is closing very quickly here. So I think this year, maybe next year, maybe that'll be when the window closes, but I still think they're totally not out of it. I still put them as a top 3, top 2 team in the AFC.
What do you think of my Bills hot take, Raybon?
I think that when you look at the Bills in a vacuum, you say they didn't get better in the offseason, but I don't think the Bengals got better. I think the Bengals got worse, and I think the Chiefs got worse. So it's kind of a wash there. And then you got the Jets, but first of all, the Jets are, like Simon said, they're already way too overpriced. I mean, I went back and looked at the Packers odds entering the season after Rodgers was coming off his MVPs over the last couple of years, and they were 12-1 and 20-1. So the Jets are 14-1, and Aaron Rodgers coming off pretty much his worst season of the last 10, really, pretty much of his career. I mean, I think last season was worse than even some of those ones in the, before he won the MVP, he was kind of falling off. So I think the Jets are way overpriced. And just going back, with Edmunds and the money they're paying him, you could do that when you got your quarterback on a rookie deal and you got the most cap space in the league. Linebacker is not a premium position, but if you want to make sure to, that you're good at that position, you could throw money at it when you got a quarterback on a rookie deal and kind of what the Bears have. So they're kind of a unique situation where I don't think some of these moves, would work for another team, but for the Bears, I think they work a lot more.
When linebackers get to Chicago, they transform into monsters. That is just the way it goes. That is history, fellas. Let the old guy teach you a little bit about history. Tremaine Edmunds will be an All-Pro this year because he will be the latest in the pantheon of the monsters of the Midway.
Are we not even going to give any love to Edwards?
I love Edwards.
Edwards probably the better linebacker of the two. I mean, as good as Edmunds was last year, Edwards is, he's been doing this. So
I'm so excited about Edwards. Like, to me, they have, in one fell swoop, an expensive swoop, the Bears have rebuilt their linebacking core and solidified the middle of their defense. And I think it's outstanding. I think Edwards was a phenomenal player for the Eagles last year, a great leader. Tackler. Like, Simon, you watched him more than I did.
Yeah, biggest jump by far of anyone on the Eagles defense. He was the kind of a guy that was like, okay, we'll bring in Dean here. We'll draft a kid out of Georgia. He'll probably step in some. We'll have Edwards just play cover linebacker. He was arguably one of our best tacklers, one of the leaders on defense. So I'm glad he got paid. And I think you guys got him on a good deal. Like, I think he still was getting paid as if, prove it again, do it again kind of deal. I love that signing for you guys. Again, two really good linebackers that should solidify. What are you guys going to run, a 3-4 defense, I believe? So pretty interesting moves by the Bears defense, especially now if Carter might drop all the way down to 9th. You get that guy in the middle. It could all be breaking right for this Bears team.
It's going to be it has what it has? Years ago, before the Buccaneers won their first Super Bowl, Warren Sapp was supposed to be a top 5 pick and dropped down to the Bucs, I think, at 12, because there were rumors about smoking marijuana, or he had failed a drug test, like idiotic stuff. The Bucs got a Hall of Famer. They got a top 5 pick, mid first round. They got a Hall of Famer. Speaking of the draft, right now, the latest mock I saw that was on actionnetwork.com by the way, CJ Stroud, number 1, Bryce Young, 2, Will Anderson, 3, Anthony Richardson, 4, Will Levis at 7 to the Raiders. I'm glad to see at least one mock draft that has CJ Stroud as the number 1 overall pick, because it is absurd to me that Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young would get love as the number 1 pick. It's not fucking Pee Wee football, okay? And it's not a developmental league. So go with a guy who you've at least seen enough film on to be able to say, oh, yeah, this guy's a legitimate quarterback, and I think he's got enough upside here. So I'm like that CJ Stroud is now getting some love at number one from the Panthers. Simon, are you shaking your head in the affirmative or the negative?
Well, I agree with it. I've finally moved CJ to my number one spot. I did have Bryce there for a while. Then once I got into this offseason, I moved him quickly to the second round just because I talked about it. I just don't think he has the body for the NFL. So I kind of moved CJ up to one. I've been flipping back and forth between him and Anthony. And I agree. CJ should be the number one guy. He's got the body, he's got the arm, he's got the mind, he's talented. My only knock is, there's a couple of things you talk about where you don't. I get where you're coming from, Chad, but you just don't want a finished product. That's the biggest thing. Is you want that piece of clay, but you want to mold it in your own way. And the reason I love Anthony Richardson so much is that this kid, he's got everything right now except the brain. And a lot of these coaches, once they get their hands on these guys, even if they don't have the brain, if they have the athleticism, I mean, Daniel Jones, yes, you could say he went to Duke. The kid might be an idiot for all I know. But I saw once he got a good coach, the coach could take advantage of his athletic ability. He built that offense around him. Daniel Jones just had a career year and just got paid a shit ton of money. And that's what I'm kind of thinking here with Richardson, where I don't know if Richardson is going to be great in the NFL, but what I do know is the kid can run. And I knew that's why, when I pitched you him at whatever that was, 50-1 or whatever to be the first pick, I didn't really think he was going to be the first pick. I just thought this kid's going to have athleticism that's going to really shine in these drills, and it's going to move up the draft board. Now, the team I'm consulting with, I can tell you this much. When I pitched him in whether that was early February, I thought I was going to be fired on the spot. These people looked at me like, who the hell is this jabroni talking about Anthony Richardson? And that's completely flipped, where I think now that I've talked to these guys more often, I think more people are coming to his side, and that's why you've seen him shoot up this draft board. But if I had the first pick, if I'm trying to be safe, right? If I'm a guy like Frank Reich, who's, he's dealt with a lot of BS over his early coaching career, and now he's in Carolina, I'd play it safe and go with CJ. But if I was a team like Houston that needed to make a big splash in the AFC that has, we can say, 5 really good young quarterbacks, it's got to be Richardson. He's got the highest upside of anyone in this draft. So to me, I still think he should be the number 2. The only thing with Houston that sucks is I think the owner's going to be making that decision there. I don't think people are going to be pitching to this guy, but I think in the end it's his decision. And right now, from everything I've heard, it seems like it's going to be Bryce. So I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think he's looking at it like you do, Chad, where you want the finished product. You want the guy that's going to be good. And I do agree. Bryce will be good in the NFL. I think he can play. I just don't think he has an upside of ever being a top 5 guy. He just does not, to me, have that upside where Richardson does. So it has been nonstop back and forth with people with this draft season. It's been really fun because you have such polarizing quarterbacks here. And, I might die on a hill here with Anthony Richardson, but to me, it was more about me just taking a position. Like, it's now an easy hedge now. If I want to take CJ, I can take him now, whatever it is, minus 200 or minus 250 be the first pick. That's an easy hedge if you had Richardson at 40-1 or greater, or even 10-1. It's still an easy hedge. So to me, that was my whole love for him. But I'm interested to hear what Chris's view is because, we have not seen an Ohio State quarterback work out, Chad. I don't want to shit on Justin Fields. It just has not happened in my lifetime. Now, you could say Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow was a nothing until he went to LSU. Once he got that confidence at LSU, that's what kind of changed Joe Burrow. Like, that's what changed his whole playing style. That was an Ohio State Joe Burrow. So that's my big worry here, Chad. It's just Ohio State, they always have a Marvin Harrison Jr. wide receiver that makes these quarterbacks look incredible. Well, I don't know how good these quarterbacks really are. So, like Justin Fields, I think the kid's got all this talent in the world. He just still hasn't proved in the NFL. That's my only pause with CJ. I think CJ's got all the talent. They don't have the history. Like, Ohio State just has not produced winning quarterbacks in the NFL in anyone's lifetime. Literally, we got 100 years of NFL here, and there ain't one Ohio State guy I can think of. So that's my biggest pause right now, this Ohio State quarterback going 1 in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'm higher on Bryce than I guess you are. I think he has a high floor and a high ceiling. I mean, how many times have people written off guys because of their size or whatnot? And you end up getting some guys that end up being like Hall of Fame caliber, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, at least until, last couple of years. So
Doug Flutie.
So I don't mind Bryce Young at number one. It's a good point about the Ohio State quarterbacks, but I think, especially, as the game is starting to change, I think it's going to start changing. I think Justin Fields, we talked about how much we love Chicago. Obviously, Justin Fields is going to have to play well. And I thought he did, I thought he took a big step, and just watching him, I mean, you could tell, get this guy some weapons. I mean, let's not forget his wide receivers last year were, I don't even remember. It was Equanimous St. Brown. And oh man, I can't even name these guys right now. Like it was bad.
It was bad.
Byron Pringle, N'Keal Harry, outside of Mooney, it was bad. So, I think with Houston, if Carolina, I think Carolina might actually go Bryce. I think Richardson's still in play for them as well. But, whoever gets CJ, I think, the team around him is obviously going to be important. I think the development is going to be important. But, looking at Frank Reich in Carolina, he had Andrew Luck, and then it was taken away from him. And then ever since then, he's just been playing the quarterback roulette. And so I think a guy like Bryce Young, a high floor guy, probably is going to appeal to him. A guy that, kind of like Andrew Luck, can come in there and give you some semblance of a floor, not be as much of a developmental prospect. So that's why I think Carolina may actually be leaning Young over Richardson or Stroud. That's just my opinion. I know
he's never coached a quarterback under 6'3", though, Frank Reich.
I mean,
that's real.
That is true, but I still think Frank Reich is going to look at, like, height is one variable, right? It's one piece of data, right? That size is one piece of data. There are a lot of pieces of data. Every quarterback class is unique. I just think when faced with the choice of these three guys, I think that's who he will roll with. I could be dead wrong, but that's just my early lean. As of now, I think Reich goes with kind of a safe guy. And Reich was kind of a safe, pick for Carolina, even as a head coach. I just think that's kind of the route they want to go. I don't think they want to play games and whiff on this pick after they just traded all this draft capital. So that's just my opinion. And I'm not saying it's even right. I'm not saying it's correct, but I'm just saying that knowing Frank Reich and knowing this organization, I would actually have money on Young going to Carolina.
I feel like, Simon, the whole height thing for Frank Reich, that's a bullshit stat. Like, how many times has Frank Reich in his career?
He's got to pick a new quarterback every year for like 4 years.
Yeah, but as an assistant coach, as a coordinator, as a head coach, he's never been in a position to control the players on his roster. When he was
that's what I just told you. He was in the Colts every year. He got to pick his quarterback.
Okay, but there's only so many quarterbacks that are short anyway. So it's
right.
It's just, I get what you're saying, but
yeah, right. You're just making my point even more, though.
No, I agree. I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, you can't, because there's a lack of short quarterbacks in general, you can't necessarily just say, well, because
I'll send you a clip though. Send you an interviewed about
had a short quarterback, he will never have one, because the odds are, for you could take anybody in the league, the odds are they're not going to have a short quarterback because there aren't many of them. Like, Frank Reich was not in a position to get like Drew Brees or Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray. It's like there's only so many short quarterbacks in the league.
I'll send you the clip though of him talking about where it was him talking about Carson Wentz and why he likes that big body, because he was the OC when they drafted Wentz. And his whole pitch was, you want a guy that can take the hits, because I need a guy that can stand in there and make the throws. Do you really think Bryce Young can take these hits, guys? I mean, that's why, I'm trying not to shit on the kid too much, because I'm with you. He has a ton of upside. It's just, we've gone too much the other way, where it's like, this kid, he's going to, I don't want to say die, but he's going to die. If any D tackle lays their body weight on this kid who's weighing in at 180, 185 playing weight, it's over. Like 300, 325 landing on top of Bryce Young, it's over. So to me, that's why I think CJ's a safe pick. It's like, I hate shitting on Bryce Young, because I'm with you. Like, this kid's tape, he is so good and he's so smart. but it's
Yeah.
just the body. It's like Hurts had the lower body. Wilson had the lower body. This kid does not have the lower body in any way.
I just think we're overthinking it. It's like, all these guys, like, it's not even just.
You got to overthink it, though. It's the quarterback position.
All right, but let's go back to some of these other guys who we've questioned because of their size. Like, again, Drew Brees, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. Like, these guys.
Kyler hasn't held up. Lamar hasn't held up, though.
But
that's my argument.
Okay, but these guys, they held up enough for them to be getting, upwards of $200 million offers. Like, it's a relative thing. It's like, there's about 24 franchises, 26 franchises in the league that would love to have Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray.
Apparently not, though. Apparently not, my guy. So that's what I mean. It's just in the NFL, I think they shifted where they're like, yeah, we want the Russell Wilson type. And now they're kind of moving back where it's like, do we want that? Like, is that the future? Because again, I just think it's these hits, man. Availability is the key to football. I am all for Bryce Young. I think he's going to be a good pro. It's just for me personally, I wouldn't touch him because of that. It's just like, I just have no faith this kid holding up. I don't care how much weight gainer he's eaten before these combines. He's not going to be playing at 205. That's just not natural body weight for him. So that's my biggest pause for him. Again, I hate shitting on the kid. Who the fuck am I shitting on a kid who's about to be the second pick or first pick in the NFL draft? But that's just part of my job where it's like, I'm pitching to this team right now. Please stay away from him. And the owner's looking at me like, I fucking like Bryce Young. Who the fuck are you? So it is tough. It is really tough where it's like, I can't predict the future, but I can go back in time and try to tell people it's like, Miami taking Tua was a huge mistake. They should have took Herbert. Herbert had the body for the NFL. Tua didn't. That to me would have flipped it right there because both of them had the same credentials coming out. They're both really high level talent. The Tua got the bump because he was so special, won the national championship. Herbert really didn't do much, right? At Oregon, his senior year was kind of a dud. Now we look at the other way. It's like, yes, Herbert hasn't done much in his career, but he's held up. Other than getting him cracked ribs, he's held up in the NFL, and that's my whole thing. It's like these big bodies, it's the reason these guys hold up, where the little guys, they really don't.
I feel you. I just feel like everyone has the potential to get injured, and especially at the quarterback position, it's hard to evaluate and find guys who can play. And I just know Bryce Young to play. Like I'll figure out everything else. Like, because like we talked about, a lot of these teams with elite quarterbacks, guys are missing games anyway. So
right,
that's just my philosophy. I get it, but it's just like I can't guarantee you that a guy like Richardson could play, the way I could with Young. So that's just how I look at it. If it was kind of more of a toss up, I would say okay. But to me, I just think Bryce is a little bit more of a short thing. But yeah, it's a philosophical difference. But I totally understand.
Simon said the key phrase: overthinking. He said, "Don't overthink it." I think we have to overthink it because otherwise, what are we doing here? It's 5 fucking months until the NFL starts again. If we don't overthink it now, we're never going to overthink it. We are bad media people if we don't overthink this. And as a Bears fan, I find it to be such a relief to not have to debate what the Bears are going to do because we've settled and we're spending our money wisely and we're making good decisions and we're going to win the Super Bowl. But let's just say there are other divisions in the NFC. In a couple minutes, we got a couple minutes because we got to wrap this up. Raybon, we've spent a lot of time talking about Carolina. Meanwhile, Atlanta, quarterback questions, New Orleans, quarterback roster questions. What do we do with these two teams in the NFC South?
So I think New Orleans should be the clear favorite for that division. But I won't spend too much time on them. Let's talk about Atlanta, because I think Atlanta's your sleeper and not Carolina. Because I think even if Carolina makes the right choice at quarterback with that number 1 pick, I think Carolina is still a year away. A lot of the things that we liked about Carolina aren't the same. Like, they don't have Wilkes. They're not playing hard for Wilkes anymore. DJ Moore's gone. Deontay Foreman's gone. Darnold's got, like, it's just a whole new, it's a whole new team. And a lot of the guys Carolina signed in free agency, are kind of average guys. I mean, Deshaun Williams, Tuttle, Hayden Hurst, Sanders, like, Thielen replacing Moore, like all these are lateral moves at best. So I'm not in love with Carolina, but I look at a team like Atlanta, signed Jesse Bates, got Onyemata on the D-line, Bates in the secondary, you get Caden Ellis on the edge, you add another, a better backup or maybe even, bridge quarterback in Heineke, then Mariota, and you have 8 picks in the draft. The O-line, it could be very good this year. The offense was already an above average offense, and it was top 3 in rushing last year. You got good young players at the skill position. So the defense is really the issue with them. And I think they started to take steps. I mean, you got Bates and Terrell, stars in the secondary. So I think Atlanta in this weak division is live to win this thing. So I love Atlanta. And then you also go to the West, and Seattle, I think is really interesting. Now, obviously, San Francisco's roster is the best in that division, but I think it's a rebuilding year for the Rams and Arizona as well. Seattle still got 10 picks in the draft. They got 5 in the top 83. They've shown that they can draft well in the past, and they already are kind of ahead of schedule, and they have a solid roster that, if they hit on, 2, 3, 4 of those picks and of those, 5 in the top 83, this Seattle team is going to be looking very good as well. And I think be a legit playoff contender, not just a team that is kind of relying on other people to get in. So Atlanta and Seattle are 2 teams that I think are undervalued in the NFC.
Simon, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, I'll just do it real quick so I can give out my picks. I think both teams are a fun upside. Like, to me, Atlanta is a fun upside in a division that we have no clue. Like, anyone that comes confident, they have a clue what's going to happen in the South. Who the hell knows? Like, that division is such a train wreck. Of course, the Saints should be favorite, but I just don't know what I'll do with that division. The Seahawks are a great sleeper team. The 49ers are going to be the darling of everyone. Everyone thinks they have 3 quarterbacks right now that could be the starter for that team. So it makes sense. People are going to be heavy on them, but Seattle is a fun team with a ton of draft picks, and they believe in Geno. So I love where Chris is coming from on those 2 picks.
Who are your picks that you want to talk about?
Just real quick, people were asking me for an update on divisional bets I made. This past week, I bet Cleveland at plus 400, plus 450 to win the North, AFC North. It's just a Lamar bet. It's honestly a Lamar bet. I think the vibes are so bad now. I think Lamar might be leaving town, or if he stays, I just don't like what's going on there with Baltimore. And on the other side of Cincy, I think Chris talked about early in the show that they haven't gotten better since they've actually gotten worse from last year. So to me, they're a team that kind of seems like taking a step back, where the Browns, they're going to have that easy schedule, that last place schedule, and they're going to be in a division now, the full offseason with, a guy that I know people don't like, Watson, but before all this BS, Watson was a top 5 guy. So to me, I'm banking on Watson getting back to form with an offense put around him. I just like the value there. And I can't believe I'm saying it, Chad, but I like what Dallas has done. I like the moves Dallas has made. I think people are too in on the Eagles, too in on the Giants, kind of forgetting about this Dallas team. I saw them reach plus 200 last week at a couple books to win the NFC East. That's too high. That's way too high. I think the Eagles have gotten worse. The Giants have made a couple of improvements, enough improvements that they should be, closer to the Cowboys and Eagles. I don't know about that. So to me, the Cowboys are kind of left for dead. People have a bad taste in their mouth how Dak ended the playoffs. They don't believe in them. I'm with you. I'm not betting them to win a Super Bowl. I will not do that. But at plus 200 to win the NFC East in a division that we just see it every year, has a turnover. The same team hasn't won it in over 20 years, back to back. So just at plus 200, plus 175, I would take that now in Dallas if you're looking for a nice little bet here on an NFC East team.
Guys, that was spirited. I can't wait to see who ends up being the number 1 overall pick. Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. I feel like that's our long shot, and it will just blow everybody out of the water. People will not believe that a Northwestern tackle was taken number 1 overall. But listen, we all know Frank Reich doesn't like short quarterbacks, and he, wants to mold his own guy. So that eliminates Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. So, Raybon, listen, Raybon, we're going to see you this weekend because we got this big event at Mad Hatter in Hoboken, New Jersey, people should go to actionnetwork.com. Just type in Action Network and March Madness event into your Google search bar. You'll find the RSVP for that. Go sign up. I'm looking forward to spending some time with Raybon. Simon, I like seeing your face. This has been the favorite podcast from the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman, for Simon Hunter, for Chris Raybon, for producer Matt Mitchell. Download us from Apple Podcasts, from Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. I mean it. Subscribe directly to the Favorites podcast. Until next time, love you.